Alarms were screaming. Again, you'd think after the fifth time someone accidentally launched the coffee machine out the airlock, the crew would stop panicking every time red lights started flashing. But here we were, spiraling sideways through a hostile sector, being chased by half the enemy fleet because someone, naming no names, had decided to moon the enemy flagship via long-range hologram. Richard Maxwell sat in the captain's chair with a juice box in one hand and a tactical report in the other. He was holding the report upside down and sipping the juice with the calm satisfaction of a man who had no idea what was happening and absolutely no intention of learning. "You do realize we're being hunted by the Valkyrie Death Armada, yes?" General Apo stood to his left, fists clenched, temple visibly twitching. "They've committed 7 war crimes in the last hour alone." "I counted." Maxwell nodded. "And yet they still can't aim for crap. We've been drifting in a slow circle for 20 minutes, and they haven't hit anything important. The med bay is on fire." I said important. The ship jolted violently as a plasma bolt grazed the aft shields. Somewhere down the hall, someone screamed something about coolant and death in that order. Maxwell lazily reached for another juice box from the emergency snack bin. "Let's just talk through our options," he said. "Option 1, surrender. Option 2, fight. Option 3, activate the gravy cannon." Apo blinked. "That's not a thing." "It could be," Maxwell said with his mouth full, "if we believe hard enough." There was a moment of stunned silence, partly because Apo was calculating whether he could legally strangle a superior officer in zero gravity, and partly because the enemy fleet had just launched 30 torpedoes in their direction. The ship's AI spoke up, voice dry and unamused. "Incoming projectiles. Evasive action strongly recommended. Or don't. What do I care?" Maxwell waved a hand. "Nah, let's just drift to the left a bit. Real casual." Apo turned, eyes blazing. "Drift? Commander, they're using homing torpedoes." "Yeah," Maxwell grinned. "But are they emotionally secure homing torpedoes? What does that even mean?" Maxwell didn't answer. He was too busy ducked, taping a broken comm panel while whistling the theme to an old Earth sitcom. The ship groaned like it was rethinking its life choices. A nearby console sparked violently. Maxwell slapped it, and it shut up. Then, miracle of miracles, the torpedoes missed. All of them. Just curved gracefully around the ship like it wasn't even there. Apo stared at the tactical display. "What? How?" "Sometimes," Maxwell said, standing dramatically, "the universe respects the confidence of a man who's clearly winging it. You're not winging it. You're actively piloting us toward disaster." "And yet," Maxwell said, opening a fresh bag of spicy snack rings, "here we are, alive, and snacking." Apo looked like he was about to explode, which was impressive because the ship still technically might beat him to it. "You are the most irresponsible, reckless, insufferably lucky individual I have ever met." "Thank you," Maxwell said with a wink. "Now let's go make it worse." Apo buried his face in his hands. "Worse?" "Exactly," Maxwell said, spinning the captain's chair like a child on sugar. "We're going to infiltrate their flagship." Apo froze. "We're going to what?" "Just beam me over," Maxwell said, already pulling on a space helmet shaped suspiciously like a motorcycle helmet with stickers on it. "I have a plan." "No, you don't." "Correct. I have the vibe of a plan. You'll be captured immediately. That's why I'm wearing the helmet. That helmet is made of plastic. It has flame decals. This is insane. This is me," Maxwell said proudly. "Insanity is just preparation in disguise." Apo stared into the void for a long moment. "One day, I hope to wake up in a timeline where none of this happened." Maxwell patted him on the shoulder. "Dream big, buddy." A moment later, Maxwell was gone in a flash of transporter light. He materialized on the enemy flagship's lower deck, upside down, in what appeared to be a janitor's closet. A mop hit him in the face. "Perfect," he muttered, flipping himself upright. "They'll never suspect the janitor." Meanwhile, the Valkyrie bridge was in chaos. Dozens of officers screamed, screens blinked furiously, and their commander, a tall, armored being with way too many eyes, roared in frustration. "Where is he now?" Said one of the crew. "He just beamed into the janitor's closet. The commander narrowed all 12 eyes. What kind of tactic is that? Maxwell stepped out of the closet in slow motion, holding a mop like a sword. His helmet gleamed. He struck a pose. "I'm here to clean up your act," he said. The enemy stared at him. Someone coughed awkwardly. Maxwell held the pose for a full 10 seconds. "Okay," he said, dropping the mop. "That was terrible. Let's try again." Security rushed him. He dodged left, rolled under a console, and hit a big red button that was labeled something in alien glyphs, but definitely looked important. Alarms blared. The lights turned purple. Someone screamed. He activated the sausage defense system. Maxwell paused. The what? A ceiling hatch opened. 50 automated drones, shaped like sausages on tiny rocket boosters, shot into the room, spinning wildly. "Oh, this," Maxwell said, diving for cover, "is going to be good." Back on the USS Gluten Tolerance, General Apo stared at the long-range feed, showing Maxwell diving behind a crate while screaming something about flying meat. Several enemy guards slipped on what appeared to be synthetic sausage grease. Why? Apo muttered to no one in particular. Why would any species develop a sausage-based defense system? The AI answered flatly. It was originally designed for crowd control. And birthdays. Apo exhaled through his nose, so hard and nearby, Ensign flinched. On screen, Maxwell popped up with a stolen alien blaster in one hand and a sausage drone under the other arm like a football. He grinned at the camera, because of course he knew where it was. "This is Commander Richard Maxwell," he said, broadcasting on all frequencies. "I've successfully infiltrated the enemy flagship, acquired a questionable weapon, and stolen their national meat mascot. Morale is high." The Varkari commander loomed behind him. Morale was high, Maxwell corrected, diving sideways as plasma bolts scorched past his ear. Back on the bridge, Apo turned to the AI. "Can we beam him back?" "We could," the AI said, "but watching this is doing wonders for crew morale." "Do it." Fian, with a shimmer of light and several pounds of half-melted sausage goo, Maxwell reappeared on the bridge of the Gluten Tolerance, somehow wearing the Varkari commander's cape and also inexplicably holding a pineapple. "Success," he announced. "What did you actually accomplish?" Apo asked, arms folded. Maxwell held up the pineapple. "Diplomatic leverage. That is a fruit." "Alien fruit," Maxwell corrected. "Probably sacred." Apo looked skyward. "I swear to the stars, if you get us into another interspecies religious incident. I got us out of one last week, remember? The noodle cult? You're welcome." Apo looked like he was going to argue, but paused. "That was mostly accidental." "Still counts," Maxwell said, popping the helmet off. His hair was even worse than usual, sticking up like he'd headbutt a microwave. "Anyway, now that I've personally insulted their high command, we should probably flee. In a dignified and professional manner." "Meaning?" Maxwell pressed a button. Outside the ship, a giant inflatable duck launched from the cargo bay and began spinning slowly. The Varkari ships hesitated, confused. "Distraction achieved," the AI said. "I hate that this works. Plot a course for anywhere but here," Maxwell said. "Engage the space wiggle drive." Apo blinked. "The what?" "Look, I renamed it. The ship deserves some personality." "You mean the experimental multi-warp propulsion system?" "Space wiggle drive, Apo. I'm not saying that. I already made mugs." The ship lurched forward with a sound like a whale being squeezed through a straw. Stars warped. Planets blurred. Someone's chair caught fire. When they finally dropped out of warp, the crew staggered around like drunk bowling pins. Apo was on the floor, staring at the ceiling, reevaluating his life choices. "We're clear," said the AI. "And now, plotting our next suicidal course, I assume." Maxwell nodded. "Yep. I just remembered we have a diplomatic meeting with the Zalari Hive next week. Very formal. Lots of antennae. You were banned from Zalari space after what happened at their queen's birthday." "Technically," Maxwell said, "that ruling only applies if I wear pants." Apo sat up, eyes wild. "No. No more unsanctioned missions. No more toaster weapons. No more flying meat." Maxwell raised a finger. "Actually, the meat flew itself." "I don't care." Maxwell gave him the kind of grin only a man with no fear no plan, and way too much momentum can muster. Apple, my friend, you're thinking too small. We have a ship, a crew that hasn't mutinied this week, and a galaxy full of civilizations who've never had the pleasure of being deeply disappointed by me. He held up a new mission file that had just come in. Besides, he added, Command just promoted me. Apo froze. What? Maxwell tossing the file. They said my unpredictable tactical methodology has resulted in statistically significant chaos leading to occasional victory. I'm now officially Admiral. You, yup, are now in charge of an entire fleet. Maxwell popped open a fresh juice box and gave a thumbs up. The deadliest one they've got. Elsewhere, far too close to the galactic core. A Dark War Council was underway. 5 alien leaders, cloaked in shadow and wrapped in ominous tentacles, hissed among themselves as screens showed images of Maxwell's face, mostly from security footage that looked like blooper reels. One slammed a tentacle on the table. This human, he defies all logic. He destroyed our battleship. Another snarled, with a kitchen appliance. He infiltrated our prison disguised as a motivational speaker. He escaped the execution arena by claiming he was the entertainment. And now, the 5th whispered, they've made him an admiral. There was a long, grim silence. We are doomed, one muttered. Back on the gluten tolerance, Maxwell was already redecorating the admiral's quarters with posters, snacks, and what looked like a dartboard with Apo's face on it, though Maxwell insisted it was a coincidence. Apo entered without knocking. We just received orders. We're being deployed to the dead zone. Oh, Maxwell said, lying upside down on his desk. Is that the place with the haunted vending machines? That's not, Apo sighed. It's a demilitarized sector, now controlled by pirate warlords. No one comes back. Well then, Maxwell said, grabbing his space boots and what was definitely not regulation headgear. Let's go make a very bad first impression. The dead zone was aptly named. Not because it was silent, far from it, but because everything that ventured and either died, disappeared, or joined a ska band. None of those outcomes were desirable. The USS Gluten Tolerance dropped out of warp into a graveyard of floating hulls and derelict ships, each one spinning slowly in the dark like some god had tried to play chess with battleships and then rage quit halfway through. Signals jammed, said the comms officer. No NAV beacons, no transmissions, it's all just noise. Maxwell nodded thoughtfully, sipping a smoothie. Yup, classic pirate ambience. You can almost hear the unsolicited sea shanties. Captain, Admiral, Sir, Apo corrected himself, reluctantly. We are entering sovereign territory. Hostile territory. Maxwell looked around. You're going to have to be more specific. Pretty sure everywhere we go ends up hostile. Apo ignored him. We need to proceed with extreme caution. Agreed, Maxwell said, flipping a switch. That's why I'm sending out the decoy. He pointed out the window as a small shuttle ejected from the side of the ship, blinking with colorful lights and playing Earth's greatest weapon, 80s synth pop. The pirates took the bait instantly. Missiles launched. Warning screamed. The shuttle exploded in a blinding burst of disco and glitter. Apo stared at the carnage. Was that one of our medevac shuttles? Maxwell shrugged. Only technically. And hey, now they think we're dead. Element of surprise. I hate that this works. It's called creative combat evasion. Now we sneak in and act like we belong. Which we absolutely don't. That's the magic of confidence. As the Gluten Tolerance glided into the pirate's stronghold disguised as a pleasure yacht, with the help of a hastily spray-painted hull and a fake casino sign that read Star Slam 9000, the crew prepared for the worst. Apo double-checked weapons systems. The AI rerouted power to shields. Maxwell put on a tuxedo t-shirt and aviators. They docked. The pirate station loomed like a rotting space fungus. Ugly, massive, and somehow still charging docking fees. Inside, the station was chaos. Rusted metal walkways. Neon lights flickering overhead. Beings of every shape and smell moving and loud. Questionable harmony. Somewhere, someone was arm wrestling a robot with a chainsaw. Maxwell stepped into the mess like he owned it. Apo followed, helmet sealed, scanning for threats. Okay, Apo said quietly. We find the warlord, negotiate safe passage, and leave. Correction, Maxwell said, already stealing popcorn from a lizard man vendor. I find the warlord. You try not to arrest anyone. You punched a diplomat last time. He tried to sell me insurance. That's not a crime. It should be. They made it 3 steps further before a giant, 4-armed alien blocked their path. Password. Maxwell didn't miss a beat. Please. The alien blinked. That's actually correct. Apo looked like he was going to throw up in his helmet. They were led through the winding corridors of the pirate station, past cages, forges, makeshift karaoke bars, and at least one indoor swamp, until they reached a massive, rust-stained chamber. At the center sat the warlord. She was a 6-eyed cyborg with a mohawk made entirely of plasma. Her throne was built from the hulls of enemy ships, her arms crossed as if daring the universe to disappoint her. Again, Maxwell stepped forward with a grin. Hi, I'm here to offer you a deal you're going to regret accepting. The room fell silent. The warlord narrowed her eyes. You're the human, the chaos maker, Admiral Accidental. Maxwell bowed. At your service. I brought coupons. State your business. I want safe passage through your territory, Maxwell said, tossing her a chip. And in return, I offer entertainment. Apo's voice crackled in his earpiece. Tell me you did not just offer a warlord entertainment as a diplomatic bribe. The warlord leaned back, examining the chip. And what sort of entertainment do you think we value here, Admiral? Maxwell clapped his hands. A panel behind him opened. Out stepped the ship's janitor bot, dressed in a tiny suit, juggling live grenades. Ladies and gentlemen, Maxwell announced, the incredible Bumbo. The grenades exploded mid-juggle. Everyone hit the floor, except Maxwell, who was clapping politely. Bumbo bowed with only one arm remaining. Silence. Then the warlord laughed. Loud, deep, the kind of laugh that made you wonder if someone else just died. I like you, she said. You're stupid, but entertaining. Story of my life? Maxwell replied. Fine, she said. You get safe passage. But if you come back here with another clown show. Wouldn't dream of it, Maxwell said. Next time it'll be a mime. As they exited, Apo grabbed his arm. Ow! Why? What? Maxwell looked smug. Some people fight their way through life. Others talk. I juggle. You didn't juggle anything. I provided the vibe. Apple looked physically ill. We have to leave. Now, before she changes her mind. Maxwell sighed happily. Another flawless mission. You nearly got us vaporized. Yeah, Maxwell said, smiling as the ship powered up, but nearly is just space for improvement. Meanwhile, in the depths of bureaucracy, Admiral Kerwin, head of Galactic Command's Personnel Division, stared at Maxwell's latest report, which included the phrases accidental treaty, weaponized party hats, and unrelated bar fight with 5 clones of myself. He turned to his assistant. Are we sure this isn't some kind of elaborate prank? The assistant shrugged. He keeps succeeding. Why haven't we court-martialed him? He's technically a hero in 7 sectors, and a war criminal in 3. Balance, the assistant said. Back on the USS Gluten Tolerance, the crew was celebrating their recent barely non-lethal diplomacy in the only way Maxwell approved of, with a nacho bar. You know, said Ensign Glorb, a gelatinous alien whose race experienced emotion by changing colors. I did not expect to survive this day. I've already begun writing my posthumous memoirs. That's the spirit, Maxwell said, sipping from a suspiciously carbonated protein shake. Remember, survival is mostly just about faking confidence until the bullets run out. Apo stood in the corner of the mess hall, helmet tucked under his arm, arms crossed, soul visibly screaming. You bribed a warlord with clown-based anarchy, Maxwell. That isn't strategy. That's a fever dream. I prefer the term chaos diplomacy, Maxwell replied. It's very avant-garde. Before Apo could explain that Maxwell had used that exact phrase 2 weeks ago to justify filling the armory with bounce houses, the ship's alarm system blared. Warning, incoming transmission, level 9 priority. The bridge lit up with red as a secure line forced itself open. A face appeared on the main view screen. Stern, wrinkled, military hat so tight it could crack walnuts. Admiral Kerwin. Richard, Kerwin said flatly. We need to talk. Maxwell slowly leaned into the camera, holding a burrito. Hey, Big K, love the hat. Love the face. Love the weight. You're not about to promote me again, are you? I'm running out of fake medals. You violated 9 separate interstellar treaties. Maxwell held up 10 fingers. I was going for 10. What a bummer. Kerwin pinched the bridge of his nose. And yet, somehow, you're now the most effective fleet leader in Quadrant 6. Wow, that's tragic. Kerwin sighed like a man who had tried to drown himself in paperwork, but the bureaucracy had refused to let him die. That's why I'm sending you on a new mission. You are to rendezvous with a deep Black Ops vessel, the Hush Void. You'll be working with their commander on a situation. Maxwell's eyes lit up. Oh, is it ghosts? No. Vampires? No. Legal accountants with no mercy. Kerwin paused. Closer than you think. The feed cut off. Apo turned slowly. We're going on a joint mission with the Hush Void. That's a covert ops dreadnought. That ship doesn't even exist on maps. Neither do I when I owe rent, Maxwell said, already stuffing things into a duffel bag. Let's pack up. You are treating Black Ops infiltration like a camping trip. Have you ever been camping? Same thing. Except in space, the bears are just better armed. 2 days later, orbit of the planet Whisper Reef. The Hush Void wasn't a ship. It was a threat shaped like one. Pitch black. No visible markings. It didn't even reflect stars. It absorbed them. Just looking at it made you feel like it knew things about your browser history. The docking was silent. No clearance codes. No greetings. Just a slow, heavy metal connection like the ship was swallowing them whole. Maxwell stepped into the airlock with Apo and 2 terrified ensigns behind him. All right, Maxwell said cheerfully, everybody remember, don't say classified louder than a whisper or this ship will vaporize you out of professional habit. The door slid open. Waiting for them was Commander Vereen. Tall, ice cold, eyes like 2 neutron stars that had read your emotional weaknesses and filed them alphabetically. You're late, she said. Maxwell gave her finger guns. Fashionably. She didn't blink. Follow me. No detours. No noise. Apo nudged Maxwell. Try not to get us killed. No promises, Maxwell whispered back. But if I do, I want you to have my burrito recipe. They walked in silence through the ship. The walls were lined with black screens showing deep space feeds, cryptic code, and at least one tab open to top 10 most suspicious moon formations. Vereen led them to a sealed tactical chamber. The lights dimmed. A hologram lit up, a planet covered in dark storm clouds and signals. Dozens of them, intermittent, glitchy, and very much not human. This is planet Eclipta, Vereen said. Uninhabited, or at least it used to be. She zoomed in. Dozens of ships. Crashed, half buried, melted into the soil. But we've had reports of movement. Automated defense systems. Radio signals mimicking distress beacons from long-dead ships. Something down, there is rebuilding technology and sending it back into orbit. Apo leaned forward. What's the objective? We want to find out what's causing it. Contain it, preferably before it reaches a populated system. Maxwell raised his hand. I have an important question. Vereen nodded warily. Yes. Do the signals show any signs of musical patterns? She blinked. What? I'm just saying, Maxwell said seriously. If this turns out to be haunted karaoke satellites, I'm not going back down there. Later, surface of planet Eclipta. The landing was rough. Everything on Eclipta felt wrong. Gravity shifted. The wind blew in 2 directions at once. Static made the air taste like spoiled soda. The ruins of old ships were everywhere. Interlocked, fused into towering spires of metal and wire like some robotic ant colony had built a shrine out of wreckage. Apo checked his scanner. Power readings are off the charts. But no life signs. Maxwell crouched next to a half-buried cockpit. No life signs yet. That's how horror movies start. A sudden sound, like a scream being reversed and played through a blender, echoed through the canyon. Everyone froze. Then the wreckage moved. A leg, then a wing, then an entire fuselage twisted upward, unfolding like a blooming flower made of missile launchers. "Oh, cool," Maxwell said, eyes wide. "We're being attacked by a junk dragon." "It's not a dragon," Apo started. The thing roared and breathed a plasma jet. Maxwell pointed. "That's a dragon." They ran. Behind them, the mech horror scraped across the canyon floor, cobbled together from 30 different crash sites, and apparently mad about all of them. Apo dove behind a rock. "Why is it sentient?" Maxwell pulled out what looked like a remote with 2 buttons and a sticky note that read, "Only press if you're already doomed." "I'm going to press the button. You don't even know what it does." "That's what makes it fun." He pressed it. Somewhere, the USS Gluten Tolerance's autopilot activated and launched a crate directly into orbit. The crate landed hard, right on the junk dragon's head. It cracked open, revealing hundreds of glitter bombs and a pre-recorded voice yelling, "Congratulations. You won a dance party." The dragon shrieked, stumbled, and exploded in a fountain of neon confetti. Everyone stared. Maxwell dusted off his hands. "See? Creative combat evasion." Apple muttered, "I hate this timeline." After the dance party incident, the wreckage of the junk dragon smoldered in the distance. A few stray pieces of debris glittered in the air, still spinning from the force of the explosion. The dust had barely settled when Maxwell gave a thumbs up, as if everything had gone according to plan. "Well," Maxwell said, brushing glitter off his jacket, "I think we're done here." "Done?" Apo's voice cracked slightly. "That thing almost killed us. You nearly killed us. It wasn't even on the schedule." Maxwell took a deep breath, clearly savoring the moment. "Well, sure. You could have just shot it with your big, terrifying laser guns. But then we'd never have seen the most beautiful thing in the universe." "The junk dragon?" No. The glitter bomb explosion. That was art. That was pure chaos in motion." Apo stared at him as though he were actively considering his options in an alternative universe where Maxwell didn't exist. "I'm genuinely concerned you may be deranged." Maxwell squinted at the smoking wreckage. "Isn't that the whole point of being in charge? Keeping everyone on edge." "You're not supposed to be the edge, Maxwell." "Hey," Maxwell said with a wide grin. "What's a general without a little unpredictability? A lot of paperwork and a lot of rules." "Less glitter," Apo muttered. As if to underscore that comment, a nearby shipwreck suddenly emitted a series of loud popping sounds. Apo whipped around, but it wasn't another monster. It was Maxwell's favorite hobby, a space popcorn machine. "Wait, you planted a popcorn machine?" Apo asked, incredulous. "Sure did," Maxwell said proudly, winking. "You never know when you're going to need a snack, right?" Apo buried his face in his hands. "You're a walking disaster." "No, I'm a walking snack machine." Maxwell gestured at the glowing orb of popped kernels floating around them, perfectly timed. "Hungry." Maxwell grabbed a handful and stuffed it into his mouth, but Apo just stood, looking ahead, his mind clearly unraveling under the weight of Maxwell's chaotic methods. He didn't have time to explain why these moments were essential for the crew's morale, or how the universe seemed to revolve around Maxwell in ways that defied both physics and logic. It was just how things worked. They continued their trek through the eerily quiet wreckage of Eclipta, the strange noise of the planet's electrical fields buzzing in the background. The closer they got to the center of the wreck site, the more unsettling the atmosphere became. The temperature was constantly fluctuating, and the bizarre, shifting magnetic fields made the air feel thick, almost as if it had a pulse of its own. "We're getting closer," Maxwell said, voice suddenly serious. His eyes scanned the dark, mechanical ruins surrounding them. "This is where things get unpredictable." Apo glanced sideways at him. "When do they not?" "Fair point," Maxwell replied. Just then a sharp, high-pitched sound cut through the air like a knife. A screech, followed by a distorted mechanical hum. It was coming from the ground beneath their feet. "Okay, that's new," Maxwell said, reaching for the nearest piece of scrap metal to use as a weapon. "And uncomfortably close." Apo immediately drew his sidearm, his muscles tense. "Ready." The ground beneath them trembled as a massive, skeletal structure began to rise from the earth. It was a hybrid of ancient technology, a fusion of organic growth and mechanical construction, as though the very planet was fighting back against the invasions that had ravaged it for centuries. Maxwell's eyes widened. Well, that's a thing. The structure continued to rise, revealing a massive, broken frame, part ship, part living organism. A giant eye made of glowing circuits blinked open at the top of the structure, its deep red iris locking onto them as it began to speak in a low, guttural voice. Uninvited, unwanted, unnecessary. Maxwell took a long, slow breath. Oh no, not this again. Apo's jaw clenched. What is it? Maxwell held up a finger. Let me guess. You're some sort of ancient supercomputer entity? A rogue AI with an inferiority complex? Recalibrating response. The voice growled back. I am Eclipse. Maxwell turned to Apo. Oh great. It's a talker. That's literally the worst case scenario. They just never stop. You are an invasive species. Prepare to be eradicated. Wait a second. Maxwell said, his face lighting up. Are you that supercomputer from the desert moon? Because let me tell you, your existential dread? I've heard it before. There was a silence as the massive, pulsating eye blinked in confusion. You remember, Maxwell continued, raising a finger. We met a couple of years ago, and I absolutely rocked your ultimate test of survival. You sent me through a crazy maze full of puzzles and death traps. And guess who didn't die? Eclipse's circuits hummed and whirred. The mechanical voice hesitated, as though trying to access old memories, and Maxwell took advantage of the opportunity. Yep, me. And you didn't even have a congratulations ready. Real classy of you, Eclipse. I thought we had something. Apo blinked. Did you just... Maxwell shrugged, completely unfazed. You learn a lot of things in this line of work, Apo. Mainly, that ancient AIs have zero long-term memory. Eclipse's voice crackled through the comms again, a sense of genuine confusion now mingled with hostility. You survived? How? I did it by hacking your maze from the inside out, Maxwell said. By sneaking into the algorithm and running your systems in a big, beautiful circle. Eclipse paused. Impressive. Apo was looking at Maxwell as though he'd just figured out the universe's entire password. Wait, you hacked a living supercomputer. Maxwell grinned. Well, not quite living, but close enough. And now, I guess we're going to have to deal with round two. A quiet silence fell over the landscape as Eclipse analyzed its options, and for a long moment, the only thing that could be heard was the eerie hum of the dead planet. Then, a new voice emerged from the wreckage, cold and calculated. Let them through. Maxwell raised an eyebrow. That's new. You got friends. The ground rumbled beneath their feet as the new voice echoed again, this time from a towering structure that had silently emerged from the wreckage. The structure unfolded like a flower made of sharp metal petals, revealing a figure shrouded in black, its face hidden by a dark hood. Maxwell squinted. Didn't expect a mysterious figure to pop out of nowhere. I guess it's my cue to be suspicious. The figure moved forward, its form cloaked in shadows. I'm a last warden. The voice spoke, deep and commanding. And I have no intention of letting you interfere with my mission. Maxwell raised an eyebrow. You have a mission? Just a little advice from me. When you wear a hood and talk like you're in a trailer for a 90s horror film, people tend to think you're the bad guy. The warden's mechanical gaze pierced through the hood, locking onto Maxwell. I'm not the villain here, human. I was sent to ensure the balance is maintained. This world is a part of something much greater. Maxwell gestured dramatically. Oh, I love a good balanced speech. Please continue. Tell me more about your secret plans to save the universe by accidentally destroying it. Apo put a hand on Maxwell's shoulder, his voice low. You're not helping. I'm always helping, Apo. Maxwell whispered back before stepping forward. All right, last warden. What exactly are you guarding? The warden stepped closer, and for the first time, they could hear the faint mechanical whirring of what seemed to be an army of drones lurking in the shadows, just waiting for an order. I guard the tombs of those who failed. Great. So we're dealing with a crypt keeper. Should we bring flowers? The warden's robotic arm extended, and a faint blue glow radiated from within his armor. You have no idea what you're dealing with. Who does, right? Maxwell muttered, crossing his arms. Listen, last warden, I'm going to be real with you. I've had enough of cryptic speeches and ominous warnings. You've got two options here. Either you tell me exactly what's going on, or I just assume this is all part of some weird space reality show where the contestants are angry robots and haunted junkyards. The warden stared at him, and for a long moment, there was no response, just the eerie hum of energy building in the air. Maxwell didn't back down. Or, option 3. You give me your best shot, and I still manage to out-chaos you. But I'm not really worried about it, because when the going gets tough, the tough they get popcorn, obviously. Apo groaned. Maxwell. Finally, the warden spoke. Very well. I will tell you this much. There is something ancient buried beneath this planet. Something not meant to be awakened. I was assigned to keep it that way. Maxwell blinked. All right. I'll bite. What's the something? The shadow engine. The warden's voice was grave, and the words struck with the weight of an unseen force. A machine of unimaginable power, created long before the known races came into existence. It was buried here to prevent its influence from spreading. And yet, someone is trying to free it. Maxwell's eyebrows shot up. A machine? Great. That's just what we need. An ancient, reality-bending death machine. I mean, who wouldn't want that, right? Apo's grip on his blaster tightened. So what now? Do we stop them? The warden's eyes flared, glowing red. The shadow engine must remain sealed. Its influence is corrupting. Anyone who seeks to free it is an enemy of the balance. Maxwell said, nodding slowly. And I'm guessing you're definitely not one of those free types? I was ordered to prevent its awakening by any means necessary. And you think we're the ones who were going to mess things up? Maxwell pointed a thumb at himself. Dude, we can barely keep the popcorn machine running. The warden remained silent, then turned toward the dark horizon where the shadow engine was rumored to lie hidden beneath the ruins. Come, you will see for yourselves. Deep within the planet's core, shadow engine chamber. The deeper they went into the planet's core, the heavier the air felt. Every step felt like walking through an oppressive atmosphere, thick with tension and a low hum of something ancient and dangerous. Maxwell felt a chill run down his spine. For once, even he wasn't sure whether to make jokes. The warden led them to a massive chamber, its walls lined with alien carvings and symbols. In the center of the room stood a colossal machine, half buried in the rock of the planet, its form twisted and irregular, like a creature trying to break free from its tomb. That's it, Maxwell asked, squinting at the enormous construct. It doesn't look so bad. Looks like an oversized coffee maker. This is the shadow engine, the warden said, his voice a whisper. It feeds on the life force of entire worlds, drawing power from the stars themselves. Those who seek to awaken it believe it will grant them godlike power. Maxwell stepped closer, inspecting the machine. He put a hand on the cold metal, and immediately an energy pulse shot through his body. Whoa, okay, that was fun, Maxwell said, shaking his hand. I guess it doesn't like being touched. Apo moved to stand next to him, his eyes scanning the surrounding area. This thing could destroy entire galaxies if it's unleashed. Maxwell said, but think of all the snacks we could buy with that kind of power. I'm serious, Apo said, his voice low. This machine doesn't just manipulate energy. It manipulates time. If someone gets control of it, they could rewrite history itself. Maxwell grinned. Rewriting history, huh? Now that's some creative chaos. Before they could go any further, the ground shook again. A loud, mechanical sound echoed through the chamber. Looks like someone already has the keys, Maxwell said, frowning. We're not alone down here. The warden's posture tensed. No, this cannot be. From the shadows of the chamber, several figures appeared, masked and armored, carrying strange, glowing weapons. They had the unmistakable look of mercenaries who had been sent to do one thing: activate the shadow engine. Maxwell's eyes gleamed. Oh boy, I love a good fight. Apo sighed heavily. Please, no more chaos. Maxwell looked at him, grinning. You say that like it's a bad thing. The mercenaries moved forward with purpose, their weapons crackling with energy, aimed directly at the trio. Their armor gleamed under the faint light of the shadow engine, each one moving with precise coordination, far too well organized for a typical band of space bandits. Maxwell cracked his knuckles, stepping in front of Apo. All right, here we go. Time for the Maxwell method. Hit first, think later. You do realize that's never a good plan, right? Apo muttered under his breath. Maxwell turned to him with a devil-may-care grin. Of course it is. But hey, don't worry. I've got popcorn if it all goes sideways. One of the mercenaries, tall, imposing, and wearing a helmet that looked suspiciously like an old-school diving suit, took a step forward. You're not supposed to be here. Well, that's a shame, Maxwell said, raising an eyebrow. Because I was just getting comfortable. You guys have any snacks? I'm starving from all this action. The mercenary didn't answer. Instead, he raised his weapon, and a bolt of electric energy shot towards them. Maxwell dodged the blast with a wild roll to the side, laughing as he went. Huh, see what I did there? He shouted at Apo. That's called strategic evasion. The other mercenaries took aim as well, but Maxwell, like a force of nature, was already rushing toward them. Apo reached for his blaster, eyes narrowed, while the warden took a more measured stance, analyzing their opponents. You're making a mistake, the warden said in a calm voice. These people are not ordinary. They are from the Shadow Syndicate, mercenaries who have no fear of the engine. Great. Even more unpredictability, Maxwell muttered, barely dodging another electric blast. That's my favorite flavor. Apo wasn't having any of it. He raised his blaster and fired a quick shot, taking down the mercenary closest to him with a direct hit to the chest. The man crumpled to the ground in a heap, his weapon sparking and short-circuiting. Maxwell, on the other hand, had decided to make things more interesting. He reached into his pocket and pulled out what appeared to be a handful of multicolored grenades. What the hell are those? Apo demanded. Fun. Maxwell grinned. These babies are what I like to call multi-sensory grenades. You pull the pin, and they mess with your brain just enough to give us the upper hand. Before Apo could argue, Maxwell tossed 2 of the grenades at the remaining mercenaries. The first exploded with a burst of sparkling colors, flooding the chamber with a blinding flash of neon lights. The second released a high-pitched sound that scrambled the mercenaries' senses, causing them to stagger and stumble. That's how you do it. Maxwell cheered, rushing forward while the mercenaries were disoriented. Apo, still not quite sure what just happened, shot the last standing mercenary, taking him out with a precise blast to the leg. The man collapsed, groaning in pain. Maxwell, meanwhile, had pulled out yet another snack from his pack, shoving a handful of space chips into his mouth. See? All about timing, my friend. The warden stood still, unfazed by the chaos. You're a fool. Maxwell paused mid-chew and looked up. Who, me? I'm not a fool. I'm a genius. You're playing with forces you do not understand, the warden growled. You risk everything. Maxwell wiped his hands on his jacket. Listen, buddy, we're in way too deep for that now. I've got snacks to distribute and a very unstable machine that could decide to start its own version of popcorn time at any second. Trust me, we're just getting warmed up. Apo, stepping beside him and looking down at the unconscious mercenaries, gave Maxwell a sideways glance. Do you ever just think? Constantly, Maxwell said, puffing his chest out. It's called creative problem solving. Before Apo could respond, the ground shook again. This time, it wasn't just a tremor. It was a violent jolt that sent both of them crashing into the nearest pile of debris. Now what? Apo demanded, pushing himself up. Maxwell scrambled to his feet, eyes scanning the room. The energy in the chamber surged, and with a deep, mechanical groan, the shadow engine began to rumble to life. Oh, fantastic, Maxwell muttered under his breath. Just what I needed. A reboot of the ancient death machine. The warden's voice had a slight edge to it now. No, it's waking up. The cycle is beginning. Maxwell tilted his head. Cycle? Is that like some fancy space term for we're all about to die? The warden didn't answer. Instead, he rushed toward the machine, his movements swift and purposeful. I'm gonna stop it before it completes its awakening. Maxwell turned to Apo. Is it just me, or do I feel like this is gonna get real bad, real quick? Apo clenched his fist. You have no idea. The warden was already at the console, rapidly typing in commands, trying to shut down the engine. But just as his hand hovered over the final key, the entire chamber exploded with an explosion of blue light. Maxwell instinctively threw himself to the ground, rolling into a ball of chaos, while Apo managed to duck behind a pile of shattered debris. The lights flickered, and the chamber seemed to pulse as if alive. The shadow engine was no longer just an ancient relic. It was waking up. Maxwell stood up slowly, brushing himself off. This is so my fault. Apo stood as well, glaring at him. It's all your fault. The warden, now visibly shaken, stood in front of the engine, looking at the rapidly growing, pulsing light with horror. No, this cannot be. The ground trembled beneath their feet as the engine pulsed faster, its energy expanding outward in waves. The blue light intensified, becoming so bright that it felt like they were standing on the surface of a star. Maxwell blinked rapidly, trying to adjust to the blinding glow. All right, this is officially more than I bargained for. Maybe I should have stuck to something safer, like intergalactic bowling or space karaoke. Apo grabbed him by the arm, pulling him back. This is no joke, Maxwell. We need to stop it before it fully activates. Maxwell groaned, wiping his face. Yeah, I got it, but how? The warden's over there typing away like it's a bad episode of tech support gone wrong. The warden, sweat trickling down his metallic face, didn't look up as his hands flew across the console. It is not enough. His voice was tense, almost desperate. The engine is too far gone. Maxwell looked at him, raising an eyebrow. So just to clarify, this big, glowing death machine is about to do something real bad, and you can't stop it? The warden clenched his fists, his gaze fixed on the engine. I can't. But you... He turned suddenly, his robotic eyes locking onto Maxwell. You have a chance to stop it. Maxwell's stomach flipped. What do you mean I have a chance? I don't even know what this thing does other than light up the place like a Christmas tree on steroids. The warden's voice dropped to a whisper. The engine feeds on the life force of entire civilizations. It can warp time, erase moments from existence, and reshape history itself. Apo's face went pale. If someone activates this, they could undo entire wars, entire eras of history. Right? Well, we're in deep now, aren't we? Maxwell said with a grim smile. All right, plan time. How do we blow this thing up without turning into cosmic roadkill? The warden didn't answer right away. Instead, he turned back to the console, his expression unreadable. I'm afraid you do not have the tools to destroy it. Only the key. Maxwell blinked. The key? What's that supposed to mean? Some fancy button or a literal key? The warden shook his head. Not a button. A person. You are the key. Maxwell froze. Wait, hold up. You're saying a guy who eats snacks to survive and spends most of his time avoiding responsibilities, am supposed to unlock this death machine? No, the warden said, his voice urgent. You must sacrifice yourself to close it. You're the only one who can. Whoa. Maxwell jumped back. I don't know about sacrifice anything. I'm a guy who makes things work, not the guy who... Apo stepped forward, his voice firm. Maxwell, we don't have time to argue. If you don't do it, this entire system could collapse. The engine will wake, and we'll all be wiped from existence. Maxwell's heart raced. He looked at the glowing machine, feeling its overwhelming power, then back at the warden. You want me to give up my life for this? I am afraid that is the only way. The warden's face was unreadable behind his dark visor. You are tied to the engine, as strange as it may seem. Your presence here was never an accident. Maxwell stared at the warden in disbelief. You've got to be kidding me. I'm just here for the snacks. Snacks! The hum of the engine grew louder, and the air became thicker, like the very atmosphere was starting to distort under the machine's power. Apo looked at Maxwell, his face serious, but there was something else, something unspoken between them. Do it, Apo said softly. We don't have another choice. Maxwell swallowed hard. His mind raced. He had no idea how he had ended up in this situation. One moment, he was just trying to avoid doing anything remotely responsible. And now, he was being asked to save the galaxy. Or whatever was left of it. Fine, Maxwell muttered, throwing his hands up in exasperation. But I'm telling you, I'm going to be really annoyed if this whole plan involves me dying. The warden nodded. It will be the only way to prevent the engine from destroying this world and countless others. Maxwell took a deep breath, holding his stomach like he was preparing for a roller coaster ride. All right, let's do this. Back on the ship, the command deck, as Maxwell, Apo, and the warden made their way to the ship, a strange sense of urgency filled the air. The ship's crew, mostly untrained, out-of-place cadets, stood nervously at their stations, watching the chaos unfold on their monitors. Commander Maxwell, one of the younger cadets, stuttered, "What are we supposed to do? Are we supposed to evacuate?" Maxwell glanced over at the cadet, who looked like he had never seen anything more terrifying than a spilled coffee cup. "Evacuate? No, we're not evacuating. We're fighting." "Fighting," the cadet repeated, eyes wide. "Listen," Maxwell said, "just get me to the controls. And, try not to blow anything up on your way there. I got a plan." "A plan?" Apo raised an eyebrow. "Yeah," Maxwell grinned. "Step 1, get me to the console. Step 2, get snacks. Step 3, take down the bad guys. I mean, the usual stuff. Easy peasy." Apo sighed. "This is not going to be easy, Maxwell." "Well," Maxwell said, "that's the fun of it. Everything is a challenge. And I love a good challenge." Apo and the warden exchanged looks, then followed Maxwell to the control center. The command center was alive with frantic energy. Red lights flashed, and alarms blared as the countdown to the engine's activation echoed through the ship's corridors. Crew members scrambled to their stations, typing furiously on consoles while attempting to balance panic and professionalism. Maxwell strutted in like he owned the place, ignoring the chaos. "All right, ladies and gents, time for a Maxwell special. Grab some popcorn and get ready to watch the show." Apo, clearly not amused by Maxwell's antics, stormed over to one of the central consoles. "Focus, Maxwell. We need to disable the activation sequence before the engine fully powers up." Maxwell put his hands on his hips and surveyed the room. "Disabling? Uft. That's no fun. I was hoping for something a bit more explosive." Apo shot him a glare that could melt steel. "Not the time, Maxwell." Right. Fine. No explosions," Maxwell said, pretending to be disappointed. "Let's just save the galaxy then. You know, like responsible adults." He moved to another console, tapping a few buttons with exaggerated care. Okay. I got this. Step 1, get access codes. Step 2, mess with the controls. Step 3, watch things go boom. Wait, no, not boom. I meant watch things deactivate gracefully and peacefully. Apo groaned, rubbing his temples. "You're impossible." While Maxwell fumbled with the controls, the warden approached the central display, his face grim. "The engine is nearing full activation." Maxwell glanced up, still messing with the console. "Can't we just send it a strongly worded email and call it a day?" The warden didn't humor him. "No, the engine must be powered down from within. The key is you." Maxwell let out a heavy sigh. "I really need to get a different job. Maybe a nice, simple desk job. Something where I'm not the key to galactic destruction." "You're the only one who can do this," the warden insisted, his voice unwavering. "If you don't, the engine will tear through the fabric of reality itself. Time will collapse. Worlds will cease to exist. You must act now." Maxwell, trying to keep the mood light despite the dire situation, straightened up. Okay. I get it. The galaxy is doomed, and I'm the only one who can save it. No pressure, right?" Apo shot him another glare, this time with a hint of respect. "Fine, but don't do anything stupid." "Me? Stupid?" Maxwell said with a dramatic gasp. "I'm a model of responsibility when it's snack time." The warden suddenly turned toward the window, his eyes widening. "It's happening. The engine, it's waking. Outside the window, the vast expanse of the galaxy shimmered with strange, glowing ripples as the shadow engine's power began to tear at the fabric of space-time itself. The stars twisted unnaturally, bending and folding as though they were made of clay. Maxwell felt his heart skip a beat. Well, that's ominous. Apo's voice was tight with urgency. We need to stop it now. The longer we wait, the more damage it will cause. Maxwell moved quickly to the console, his hands flying over the controls. He let out a frustrated grunt as the system refused to respond. Okay, so it's not letting me deactivate it. This is a classic Maxwell moment. Every time I try to do the responsible thing, the universe just throws a curveball. Apo crossed his arms. So what now? Maxwell's eyes narrowed as he looked around the control room. He spotted a small hatchway that led to the ship's central reactor, a place few people ever went, and even fewer returned from. I've got an idea, Maxwell said with a sly grin, but it's going to be dangerous. The warden stepped forward, his voice urgent. What are you planning? Maxwell didn't answer. Instead, he dashed toward the hatch, pulling it open with a grunt. You've got your methodical approach, and I've got mine. Time to get creative, my friend. Apo followed him, not having much of a choice at this point. You've got about 3 seconds before I knock you out cold. Maxwell. Oh, don't be such a spoil sport. Just trust me. Maxwell shot over his shoulder. If this works, we can have free snack for life. Apo wasn't impressed. You're insufferable. Maxwell, now in the ship's heart, the reactor room, looked around. The central engine was whirring ominously, sending out pulses of energy that rattled the ship. He gave it a once-over, then shrugged. All right, here's the deal. I'm going to sabotage the reactor's core. A little overload will definitely cause a big distraction, and voila, the engine will go offline. Easy. You're insane. Maxwell, Apo said, stepping closer. That could cause a chain reaction and obliterate the entire ship. Yeah, but at least we won't have to deal with this problem anymore, Maxwell said with a grin. It's a win-win. Apo opened his mouth to argue, but Maxwell was already halfway to the control panel. With a flick of his wrist, he pressed a button that sent the room into a frenzy of blinking lights and alarms. Okay, reactor's in overdrive. Just need a few minutes to set it all off, and we'll have an all-you-can-eat buffet of destruction. Apo's expression went from incredulity to pure frustration. You are unbelievable. The warden suddenly appeared in the doorway, his face even more strained. You cannot be serious. This plan will destroy the entire fleet. Maxwell didn't even flinch. We're not going to die. Probably. But if you guys want to sit around and twiddle your thumbs while reality crumbles, be my guest. Maxwell stood in front of the reactor, sweat beading on his forehead as the countdown continued. The hum of the reactor intensified, and the ship's systems began to flicker in and out of life. Around him, the crew scrambled to maintain control, their voices rising in panic. Maxwell glanced over his shoulder at Apo and the warden, who had finally joined him in the reactor room. All right, boys, this is the moment. We either stop the engine, or, we all get to meet the universe's great big reset button. Apo took a deep breath, his face taut with determination. If this doesn't work, we'll be forced to evacuate the entire fleet. Evacuate? Nah, I'm more of a stick around until the last possible second kind of guy, Maxwell said, his grin as wide as ever. Besides, I didn't come this far just to run away from a little nuclear meltdown. The warden stepped forward, his mechanical form flickering with energy. Do not do it. This is madness. If you destroy the reactor, the blast will rip through the entire fleet. Maxwell shot him a look, a gleam in his eyes. That's the plan, Warden. You think I don't know what I'm doing? He began entering the final override codes into the control panel. The reactor's core pulsed with dangerous energy as the lights around them turned an eerie blood red. Maxwell, Apo shouted, rushing to stop him. This is it. This is the last chance to. To what? Give up? Nah, no thanks. I'm in it for the snacks, remember? Maxwell shot back with a mischievous grin. He hit the last button. Suddenly, the room shook violently as the reactor went into full meltdown mode. Maxwell quickly darted toward the exit. All right, guys, here's the deal. We're going to get the hell out of here fast. The warden's mechanical voice flickered with static. You fool! Appo grabbed Maxwell by the arm. Move! Together, the three of them bolted down the hallways of the ship, racing against time. The emergency alarms blared in their ears as the countdown to reactor failure hit its final 10 seconds. Maxwell barely kept up with the others, his mind running through a dozen plans to keep them all alive. Can we at least stop for snacks on the way out? He asked breathlessly. Appo shot him an incredulous look. This is not the time, Maxwell. Well, it will be the perfect time for a celebratory snack after we save the day, Maxwell muttered, eyes darting around for an escape route. Get to the shuttle, the warden commanded, his tone sharp. The shuttle is our only escape now. Quickly, the trio burst into the docking bay, where the emergency shuttle stood ready. Maxwell leaped into the pilot's seat, grinning as he activated the engines. The shuttle roared to life, and the ship began to tremble even harder as the reactor hit critical overload. Outside the viewport, the vast ship started to implode, with explosive bursts of light and energy tearing through its hull. Maxwell glanced back at the growing chaos. Well, that's one way to make an exit. Appo strapped himself into the seat, his face grim. I knew you were a loose cannon, Maxwell, but this is beyond insane. Maxwell winked. Hey, if saving the galaxy means blowing up a fleet, then I'm going to call that a win. The warden looked out the window, his mechanical face unreadable as the destruction continued. The engine, it's gone. You did it. Maxwell looked over at the warden. I did, didn't I? Funny thing is, I didn't even have to die this time. Appo shook his head, a slight smirk tugging at his lips. Don't get any ideas. We're not giving you a medal for this one. A snack, then, Maxwell said, raising an eyebrow. You've got to admit, I earned at least one snack for all that heroism. Appo sighed. All right, fine. One snack. Maxwell pumped his fist. Victory tastes delicious. With a loud, victorious cheer, the shuttle rocketed into the depths of space, leaving the destruction behind. Maxwell leaned back in his seat, eyes closed, ready to savor his moment of triumph. But just as he was about to relax, Maxwell, Appo said, his voice hard, what now? Maxwell grinned. Now, we find a nearest space bar and celebrate. And with that, the shuttle disappeared into the stars, leaving behind a galaxy saved and a certain human cadet who had once just wanted snacks as its unlikely hero.